At last, a movie that finally realizes my very specific dream of being driven around Washington, D.C. by Gary Busey. Jamie, let's go watch DC Cab.
To another episode of Good Times, Great Movies. It is here where we discuss every so often a movie from the 1980s.
We don't remember exactly. Not a scheduled podcast.
It just happens every now and then. But it is consistently myself, Jamie Lorello, and a DP McCambridge. And it's in every other week that it happens.
Sure.
Odd or even week, I'm not to say. But each
Wait, are there odd and even weeks in the year? I mean,
Why
I guess if the first week of January would be week 1.
Yeah, that's your odd.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later is your odd again.
Right. No, it would. So in odd or even, we have either always been doing this on an odd or even week, depending on how your calendar works.
True. There you go. Depending on.
Great. You know what? Another flawless opening by us.
Right? Yes. Always.
At least you said our names. I have occasionally not even said our names in the intro.
Because I know who you are. You know who I am. Mm-hmm. We know what we're doing here. The introduction's really for everyone else. And some of you already, you're on this wagon. You're subscribed. You're a listener, and you already know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And right? I assume if you've never listened before, you've stopped listening by this point.
You're probably like, what are these crackheads even? When are we going to talk about DC Cab? Uh-huh. Yeah, and if you're tuning in simply because it's the DC Cab episode, you're amazing for having seen it. Had you seen this movie?
No.
Known it existed? Because I didn't even know it was in existence.
As I had told you at the end of last episode, I had seen the poster, I had seen the VHS box, because I saw a big image of Mr. T with a cab door in his hand, and I guess other well-known actors in the background, very small.
There's a bunch of them. There's a whole...
Here's what I assumed this movie was. I assumed this movie was madcap, zany nonsense, top to bottom, because it's a Mr. T movie. And it ended up kind of not being that. I mean, at times it was, yes. But it was... I don't want to say it's a serious movie, because it's not, but this was just not the movie I expected based on the poster and based on the VHS box that I saw. I pictured something that was very low budget, full of nobodies and Mr. T.
Did you think there was more Mr. T? Because I was a little disappointed at the lack of Mr. T.
Yes.
I mean, we had him, but there were so many other characters. This was really like an ensemble piece. And so
I thought it was really interesting. We have a follower on Twitter, and they said that they have a Mr. T board game, which I did not know was even made. And they even took pictures of it. Yeah, and my response was, this is based on the cartoon. This person did not know there was a Mr. T cartoon. Remember the one with he and gymnasts?
Yeah.
And then...
Saturday morning. Yeah. And then the lineup.
And I was like, well, where... Because I only really knew Mr. T from the A-Team. And I was like, how did he get mixed up with gymnasts? But he's in leotards through this movie. Like, his ensembles are insane, and I don't know who's dressing him.
Himself, of course.
It's gotta be himself.
Those feathers in those ears, that flamboyant way that is only Mr. T. The colors he wears, the kindness he emotes. He's a gem of a guy, of a character. And that made me a little sad that he wasn't featured as much. I didn't have many expectations about this movie because, I mean, what do you expect? Gary Busey, Mr. T. I was like, this is just going to be craziness. And it was. But I expected a little more Mr. T. But
I expected way more Mr. T.
Yeah.
I thought this was a Mr. T feature. Like, I thought this was...
It would appear that way from the poster, as you Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I don't understand. Who did the marketing campaign for this? Because based on the poster, I don't know who would.
Well, was it when Mr. T? It was 83, right? What is that when this movie came out?
Yeah.
83.
Mm-hmm.
So is that right at Mr. T's peak? Because it's not like
It has to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that maybe the cereal was out then too,
which Pee-wee
I think
was
we even had an action
consuming.
figure. Oh
Yeah.
you did. Right? They had a couple of.
Yeah. Oh, my neighbor had the A-Team set. With the van and
Did
everything.
him with the van, yeah.
And then it was interesting to play because nobody wanted to be Face. Remember the attractive guy who kind of did nothing but seduce women? And to like a 8-year-old kid, like that's not cool. And nobody wanted to be. Who was the leader? Who was George Papard in that? I can't think of his name.
Oh, I can't think of his name either.
Yeah. Everybody wanted to be, we both wanted to be Mr. T and Murdoch, the crazy guy who would fly planes and helicopters.
Yeah.
So, there was always fighting about who was who. Anyway, that was just a little look into my childhood. But back to DC Cab, because this movie, directed by Joel Schumacher,
yes,
who is a regular on this podcast. I think percentage-wise, we've covered more Joel Schumacher movies than any other director.
You're probably right.
St. Elmo's Fire, Lost Boys, and now DC Cab.
Uh-huh.
But to say first, this is a suggestion by patron Christian. And if you donate at the $15 level, you can make us watch whatever movie you want.
Anything you want?
Except DC Cab. We just watched it.
This one's off the list, right?
Right. So thank you so much. I really thought I would have never seen this movie. I would have thought I would go my entire life without having seen this movie, but that is not the case anymore.
No, not the case anymore. This movie's been brought to light. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you. We really do appreciate it. And I don't know, start thinking about what you want us to do next year, I guess.
Well, I want to know I guess, are you a kid when you watch this? Because I definitely would not have understood anything that was happening in this movie if I watched it in 1983. Or even 85. Or even 91.
Well, this just keep going.
I barely understood. No, it was a crazy movie. It was. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into this. What is this game that cab drivers play with masks? Is this a game?
I don't know.
Was that what that is that we were first? Is this the whole DC cab? Is this because so the DC cabbers are a bunch of misfits, essentially, right? The cab drivers.
They're a bunch of misfits. Yes.
There was a time when obviously the show Taxi, the cab drivers, it was a thing. Are we gonna have reality shows about Lyft and Uber drivers someday? I don't know, maybe, but
I'm surprised that's not a thing.
I know.
I'm shocked that's not a thing.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's something, and we're just not. It's probably a new Netflix show coming out. I'm an Uber. Or I don't know.
Jamie, you just created a Netflix show and named it because I'm an Uber actually does sound like a show that would exist.
A DC Uber. Well, let's listen. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not plan shows that may or may not be in pre-production. Right? Let's get to the show at hand.
Are you jotting notes right now? Because you should be.
I might be feverishly.
Okay. So it's a weird cold open to this movie because I don't understand what's happening because there's a guy who is wearing curlers in his hair. This is his thing.
Yeah. It's not even his real hair, we find out later. It's like a piece.
Which is apparently supposed to be shocking. I'm like, why? Why
I didn't understand that either. I don't either.
Is it a root? Are you pretending to be stupid because you have curlers in your hair? I don't get it.
What's your damage, Tyrone? What's going on here?
Tyrone's got a lot going on. He's got a lot of problems. He's got, just like everybody else in this taxi cab company, apparently they're all $700 away from not having to drive taxis anymore in their life. The way that 10 grand breaks down at the end, I'm like, I don't think they're even getting $1,000 each.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why they're all suddenly flying the coop and they can't wait to start the new big life.
I know.
I'm like, I am sure $820 is a lot in 1983 money, but it's not that much.
Well, for these DC cabbers, and now they're in DC, so pretty. But they're a motley crew of dudes that I guess spend their evenings instead of driving cabs around scaring each other with masks on, and they scare the guy in the curlers and make him run up into a fence. Is that like a initiation thing that you have to do?
I think it is, because when he's talking to, who's the main guy? What's his name?
Albert. I wrote the new guy a lot in my notes, but his name is Albert.
So when he's talking to Albert about how to be a DC cab guy, he's like, here's what you got to do. You got to get a mask. And then you got to drive on these train tracks. And you got to get your license. And so I assume this is initiation, but I don't. Is this them initiating Tyrone? Is that what we're supposed to think?
Or is it just like the game that they play at night when they're done driving their cabs around? Which, by the way, their cabs are shitty cabs. They're very old school looking. They're like classy looking, like yellow cabs, but
like
they're like
comically
beat down.
shitty.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Huge portions of the vehicle are missing.
Gary Busey's is on fire when he pulls it into the cab station.
Right. I want to live in a world where I have a good chance of being picked up by Mr. T, Gary Busey, or Sly
even
Stallone.
Tyrone. That's right.
Yeah, I think I already kind of forgot that this is our second taxi movie that we've seen in this past year.
That's what I'm saying. Taxis were a thing, and taxi drivers were like, that was a... I mean, it's kind of no wonder that this guy would come with this, because I thought it was funny like this. So this kid has this dream, Albert has this dream of becoming a taxi cab driver. So we meet this motley crew of taxi cab drivers that all work for DC Cab, and we'll go over them as we, because there's a shit ton of them.
There's a montage where he meets the whole team.
And he gets to ride with some
he's swapping riding with all of these, let's just say guys, because other than Roz from Night Court, they're all guys.
Oh, yeah, Roz. Yes, they are. But he's new. Albert's new in town. He came up from Alabama or Georgia to
I don't
DC.
know, because this southern accent comes and goes.
It comes in waves. I agree.
When he asks the waitress to take out her granddaughter, I was like, whoa, where did this southern... I have not heard a southern accent from this dude
says something
in this entire movie.
When he's talking at one point to Tyrone, when they're on one of their drives together, all of a sudden for like 3 lines, he's like deep south, and then it's gone again, and you're like, what's happening?
I'm just a southern boy, and I don't know. And I'm like, wait.
But he does. He supposedly comes from the south, and he came up to D.C., in search of his cabbing dream.
Well, he knows the owner of DC Cab. The owner of DC Cab and his father apparently served in Vietnam together.
Yes, and
his father died.
I like when there's the montage when they're looking through the old war photos.
And they're just wearing gas masks and drinking beer.
Harold was Albert's father's buddy in Nam, and Harold now owns a cab company, the DC Cab Company, in DC. And Albert has come to chase his dream and to learn from the best.
Again,
allegedly.
To chase his dream of being a cab driver.
That's right.
I guess in Washington, D.C. Very specific. Like, this is the most specific dream.
Great, very specific. But like we said, so taxi cab, like they were kind of romanticized in a way, I guess, in the 80s.
Of course. So he shows up. I do have to say, I did look at the runtime at several times in this movie. One was when all the problems were resolved, and I went, we're only an hour into this. Something else has to happen.
All of a sudden, I was like, there's got to be more montages. Right. What's going to happen?
But at the end, when credits stop rolling, we're 9 minutes into this movie. Like, the last credit comes up, and I was like, this is almost 10 minutes of credits.
Yeah, the credits go on for a long time.
Whatever that one song that they got made for this movie, I assume, and they were like, we're going to use it. We're going to use it for the credits. We're going to use it for every montage. We're going to use it at the end. It's crazy, too, because they have, what's her name? I can't even think of her name. The singer.
Irene.
Whatever. Irene Cara. So they have her in this movie, and they don't even, this is the only song they use in this movie. It's crazy.
I know.
So he goes to DC Cab for a job.
Yes.
we start to get introduced to these drivers before they have their Vietnam reminiscent drinking fest. We do see some of the drivers. We see Paul Rodriguez. Boy, I don't know the last time I heard that guy's name. Like,
right?
Like, it was a wonderful, like, I remember him on, like, Comic Relief. He was always on Comic Relief.
Yeah.
So he is...
He's like a gigolo.
He calls himself a gigolo, but
yeah.
I don't think he knows what a gigolo is. But he dresses very fancy.
Yes.
He would consider himself a ladies' man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Roz from Night Court is there, and she's constantly getting held up. She's constantly
it's a terrible drive
robbed.
that she does. I don't understand, and it's always at the same corner. I'm like, maybe don't drive that area.
It's like she drives down an alley, too, because it's not even at a real street.
No, it's not like she's looking for somebody to pick up. It's a weird thing. It happens to multiple cabbies, mostly her, though, where this guy holds her up and then takes all her cabbie money for the day. And he must hold her up at the end of the day. I don't mean to laugh because it's pretty shitty. But so, yeah, we see her.
Yeah, so she's a good driver. We do see that Bill Maher is there.
Oh, Bill Maher's there, yeah.
Bill Maher's kind of just being Bill Maher.
Maher, yeah. He even does a little stint like in front of the White House and has a little like thing he goes off on the White House about, and it's just very Bill Maher, even then.
I understand that Mr. T is probably not a tiny man, and that these barbarian brothers are probably pretty
the barbarian
pretty
brothers.
big dudes. But Bill Maher is so short, and I never knew he was this short. When he is standing with everyone else there, Roz from Night Court, Mr. T, Gary, everyone is towering over him. It's really funny to watch him in those group shots.
Yeah.
Oh, did you notice that? Did you notice that the receptionist, who is the wife of I can't think of his name, Harold.
Harold?
Did you notice that at her desk she has a picture of Prince Charles and Princess Di?
I didn't, but that's awesome.
It's like a framed photo on her desk.
They were a wonderful thing, and people, like women of the 80s, like loved their relationship.
Yes.
And so I love that. That's awesome.
Did I ever tell you the story about the guy I worked with? I think I told it on the podcast. The guy I worked with who had a framed picture of Sade in his office.
Oh,
and he didn't, I thought it was his wife for the longest time. Like, it was like an 8x10 framed photo. And I was like, this guy's wife is gorgeous. And then one day somebody just in passing was like, I think you cut that out of a magazine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If I ever have a desk again, I'm going to decorate it with just not pictures of my family and my people that I love, just like people that I cut out of magazines. Like, I'll have Rod Stewart, and I guess I should have always done that all along.
You really should have, because people would be like, your husband looks so much... Did anybody ever tell you he looks like Rod Stewart? You've had to have heard this before. Anyway, all right.
Well, he's got my heart. He has it. Anyway, who else do we meet? Oh, Mr. Rhythm.
Yeah, Grady from Sanford and Son. He doesn't work there, right? He's just a homeless man.
No, I think
around.
he does. I don't know.
He can't work there. He doesn't even know how to drive a car at the end of the day.
No, he doesn't even know when they ask him, when he's the one that finds this stupid violin that somehow... God. There's so many little subplots.
I thought that was the movie. Like, I thought that was the movie. So when that was wrapped up, I went, how is there still 40 minutes left?
I know, because we found it, and he... Oh, man, okay. But I thought that he is somehow working for the cab company. I know he doesn't seem to really drive a lot of cabs, but then even later, he's on the little walkie-talkie thing.
He was sleeping in it.
He does sleep in the cabs. All right, maybe he is the homeless guy that...
I think he's just hanging around. Like, I don't think he has a stake in this company.
Okay. Does he get any part of the $10,000? Does he get like $5.50 by the time it's split among everybody?
It's never mentioned. I love that scene because that entire scene where they talk about the money is just them all yelling at each other with these short periods of like 10 seconds with everybody quieting down and listening to the next thing and then continuing to yell at each other.
More shouting.
So Harold is happy that Albert's there. He invites him to stay at his house.
Which is a little uncomfortable because Harold and his wife don't necessarily have a very loving relationship.
And I know what happens later in the movie. I get it. But immediately I was a little bit upset because we as the audience are supposed to think that this lady is a terrible bitch. But then I was like, this guy has a flamethrower and he's just like lighting fires with. Like, I understand how upset she is.
He does.
At all times with this dude.
Oh, I don't understand. She is a very, but we find out later why.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Not to, but, she's a very grumpy lady, and she has a really hard time. He's like bonding with his friend's son, and she comes home. I don't think it's this scene. I think it's later where she's like, "Did you leave me a beer? I like to watch my beer and my Johnny Carson." And he's like, "No, sorry, I didn't leave you a beer. I'll go get one beer right now." She's like, "I don't want the beer now," and she like stomps up the stairs.
I do love her line where she's like, "If Ed McMahon walked down the street with a beer, I would not drink a beer." It was much better written than it was so horrible delivery. But yeah, she's really fun in this movie. I thought she was great in this movie because this movie is just everybody shouting over one another. So I always feel in each scene, I just gravitate to whoever's yelling loudest. Most of the time when she's interacting with Harold, she's yelling and he's not.
Yeah, because Harold's kind of a, what would you say? How would you describe? He definitely doesn't seem like he would own and operate a cab place. I think that's why he's a soft-hearted kind of guy.
Right, exactly. And that's why I don't want to say that I'm sympathetic toward her, but that's why I was like, well, this guy's running around with a flamethrower. The wall in that house is black from him shooting a flamethrower into the fireplace. And I'm like, he's running a failing cab business. I'm not saying she's in the right, but I kind of get it.
Yeah, you understand where she would feel a little vexed in her daily life. Okay.
I swore for a brief second, I was like, oh, Fran Drescher's in this movie. I was so excited just for a moment. And then she spoke and I went, oh, it's not her.
It's not Franny. It is not Franny. Oh, I have some of Busey's lines written down. This one's a little spicy.
Try not to say so many N-words when you say Gary Busey's line.
I didn't write.
Because, man, when that happened, I was like, oh, no, is this what this movie's going to be? Because I might have a problem with it. But thankfully, it was just that one speech of his.
No, yeah.
And then it all ended. But then right after he yelled all that, then it was just naked ladies. And I was like, what movie is this suddenly?
What about before he hangs out with the members of each team and they get the complaint so the cab company isn't doing well, right?
Right.
And who is it from the city that comes down?
I don't know.
Somebody from the city comes down because Tyrone keeps going to the airport and this cab company doesn't have their airport license yet.
Right, yes.
And he picks up people at the airport, which he's not supposed to do, and then he overcharges them. So he picked up this Asian couple from the airport.
Oh my God, I forgot about this part. Yes. And who is this guy? You're right. Like, is he like the president of the cab association? Like, I don't understand what this guy's job is.
He's some sort of official, though, like city official of some kind that can fine them and get the cab company in trouble. So he comes to the DC cab headquarters, I guess, with this Asian couple and is like, your cabbie overcharged them and he doesn't even supposed to be at the airport. And they're just a crazy bunch of cabbies. Tyrone then puts that car in reverse somehow, and that car drives in reverse.
Yeah, we really, like you said, we just see that they're just a bunch of misfits in this particular scene because they surround him. It's like they're a pack of animals. They all surround him. They all have to just spew
even
insults.
Mr. T. Yeah, Mr. T's always the least offensive.
Yes.
Busey always has this very offensive, very vulgar something that he says. Tyrone always kind of does this Tyrone song and dance kind of jive thing when he talks. And Mr. T's like, come on, we're hardworking men. Why you gotta come up here in our business and claim we're caught, whatever.
And there's also just two bodybuilders who for no reason just run around through this movie.
Yeah, these two barbarian brothers. It's crazy. All right. But that happens, and then I think, is this then when we get the rides? Yes, because he takes his first ride with gigolo with the gigolo guy.
Right, yes. And Paul Rodriguez is like, listen, we're in D.C., I get to drive around senators' wives and stuff like that, and they're lonely because their husbands are out of town and blah, blah, blah. And he mixes up the people's names in American Gigolo because he's trying to he's trying to just say Richard Gere, but he doesn't know Richard Gere's name. It's very strange. Oh, and also as he's driving, people are being thrown around in the back of the cab.
Oh, yeah, because he drives like a lunatic.
Yeah.
He just drives like a lunatic, and the people even in the back are like, oh, they're going to just swashed around. Then we get a little Busey ride where we see just a bunch of boobs hanging out. The woman that Busey picks up in the car right away is like, I have to let my boobs breathe because I'm about to dance topless and I can't have any marks on my... That's the first thing she says when she gets in the cab, and then proceeds to just take her top off.
Yes. And then she just gets out without paying.
No,
like, I'm not paying. Just like, they see where you're going. Yeah. You're just walking in that door right there.
So then Busey sends Albert in to go get the money from her. Doesn't work out so well. So Busey ends up going to get the money. And Busey pulls her pants off. And then she runs into the city street naked, screaming, he's got my money.
Full frontal or full back nudity. Like, it is a weird thing.
Yes, it's very early in the movie.
To be front loaded in this movie, where when I announced we're watching this, all these people I grew up with were like, I love this as a kid. And I'm watching this going, where did you see this as a kid?
That's exactly what
I'm like, Busey's yelling the N-word. There's naked women running around. I'm like, this couldn't have been on TV. There's no way. I was so shocked. Like, I did not look into this movie before we saw it. Like I said, I knew Mr. T was in it. I assumed it was about taxi cabs.
Well, and it is.
I was shocked that Gary Busey's in this movie. And even more shocked that he's in it. I am more shocked with what he is doing than anything else that anybody's doing in this movie, because I don't know how much, as I said earlier before we started recording, I don't know how much of what he's saying was written down, because the looks on the actors' faces are it's just excitement in their eyes because he's just going. Like, what is that whole Elvis thing? Like, there's no way the director was like, then dance around, start grabbing your ass. When you're dancing, just start like you're picking a wedgie. Just do it for like a good 30 seconds. There's no way anybody told him to do that.
He's moving like Elvis. He's got these one-liners. He says something about oral sex. He's got a terrible, what does he say? The view. Oh, the worst thing about oral sex is the view.
The view. And he laughs. He laughs so hard. At this joke.
Yeah. He says something later on when Harold is trying to make a deal with them for the money. Well, I guess we'll get there. We'll get to his lines.
What does he say when everything has gone bad and he's like, now y'all know what I feel like when I wake up every morning.
Oh, when he's shaking the bottle like a lunatic
crazy.
Next to him.
He's like, we're going to play a game. We're going to play a game. We're going to take this bottle and you're going to shake it. You're going to shake it next to your ear and just wonder if it's going to explode. And finally somebody just yells at him to shut up. And I was like, I don't think
Mr.
any
T,
of this
it's the calmest of all of them. Mr. T's like, shut up, Dale. I think Dale's his name.
And I was like, I doubt any of that was in the script. Like, there's no way.
Maybe they just said, he says, this is what he says, and I don't know what a sex surrogate is. But
I looked it up. I had to look it up.
He says, so, not to give too much away, we're obviously going a bit out of order in this retelling. Oh, it doesn't matter in
this movie.
But, so... At some point, Harold is going to get a certain amount of money for this violin that was found. And he's decided he's going to split the money with the other cabbies, but he wants the cabbies to invest the money back into the cab place, right? And Busey's response is, if I wanted responsibility, I'd be a sex surrogate. Sex surrogate?
I would have
What's
never
a sex
quit my
surrogate?
dream of being a sex surrogate.
What is it?
I had to look it up. A sex surrogate is almost like a therapist for people with sexual issues. So they like teach them how to have sex and teach them how to like have intimacy with people.
Oh my God. What does he say? Oh, and he's got this terrible, he does have he's got some colorful language about African American people. And then he says about women, I think I wrote this one down somewhere, but I think I can remember it off the top of my head. He says, women, they got half the money, but all the pussy.
Yeah, is that when he's just randomly groping some girl at the drive-in?
Yeah.
He's just standing there groping her and also stealing her popcorn. And they go to a drive-in they did not know they were going to a drive-in. He gets out of the car and he has 3D glasses on.
It's crazy.
It is
So
his
crazy.
performance in this movie. It is worth watching this movie
Wild.
alone. I mean, we'll get
wild.
into it at the end if we recommend it or not. But even if it's not a great movie, it is worth watching it just to be like, this
Just for
is
his
what,
lines.
This is what he was doing at this time in his
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And there's a part later on where I guess it's after they rescue everybody and they're all jumping around celebrating. He's kind of overweight in this movie. Like I looked at Gary Busey and I
He's
was
not
like,
in his Healthy as Busey shape. Yeah.
Mr. T's jumping on a car, like hitting it with baseball bats.
Oh, yeah, because there is a while where they just jump. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody else is jumping and high-fiving. And Busey's just kind of like teetering. Like he's barely moving. He's
too
not
drunk to
smiling.
jump.
He's so weird.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know if these lines were written for him. I don't know if this performance was like a screwball performance. Whatever it is, he sticks through it. This character is a wild man, this Dale.
I guarantee you, I want to read an interview with him because I guarantee you, if you interviewed him and talked to him about this movie now, 100% he does not remember making it.
He doesn't remember.
I
don't know.
I am willing to bet.
Maybe this is one of his, what he thought more defining performances. Maybe this performance, this character made him embody the Busey that we've come to know today. Because we know him as we know him, but he had to become that.
Right.
Maybe this was a titular part of that journey.
And it's a big thing because he had a severe motorcycle accident, and then people say like after that he was never the same. So of course, after I watched this, I went, when did he have
Was
that
this
motorcycle
before or
accident?
after that
This is
accident?
well
Yeah.
before that, and I went, that accident's bullshit. Like that is just an excuse for the way he acts now. I'm not saying he didn't have an accident. I'm sure he did.
No, but like that's
but
why
he
they
was,
blame his
this
behavior
is who he
on it,
is. Like
Yeah.
something didn't happen to him in like 1989. This is just
Maybe
Gary
it did.
Busey.
Maybe that accident maybe this was just a character for Busey. And then after the accident, he became Dale.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of love that. Because,
Just
but he also
speculation.
didn't because this is
Just
almost the
speculation.
same character.
Yeah, as from the Wolf movie, the uncle.
Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
This is a world where the guy from Silver Bullet, he was visiting because he took a break from his job at DC Cab to visit his sister.
Same. I
and
agree.
Corey
I
Haim
agree.
in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and now he's like befriending this kid. He tones down the language a little bit because he's around this little wheelchair-bound
Right.
kid. So now that we've definitely decided maybe we're having a side podcast called "The Best of Busey."
Oh my
I don't
God.
know.
I
But
would
we
do that. I go through his entire filmography. That would be great.
All right.
So let's talk about the Barbarian brothers because that's who he rides with next.
So they're crazy. They only drive backwards. Is this correct?
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought was going on. But they do have to stop the cab at an intersection, and some guy yells at them. They're like, "It only goes backwards.
yeah.
I'm driving to the shop. I gotta get this fixed."
That's right.
So I don't think that's their thing. But I like how they
Okay.
make him wear a red bandana when he rides
Yeah,
with
like
them too.
like them. Yeah. And I like how they are like twin brothers or whatever, and I guess they just cab together. Like they don't have a separate cab each. They just
That's the thing.
Right?
Yeah, that's the thing that I kept looking at and going, are they then splitting this money? Like, are they both
Oh, you were really concerned with this money split.
The money
you were doing
distribution is a problem
calculations.
for
You were
me,
like,
yes.
how's this really going to work out? Harold didn't think it through.
They don't drive separate cabs. I don't think they do. I think they're just always in the cab together. Yeah.
Yeah. And from what it sounds like, it's hard to afford a cab in the city. So
it must be.
they're just splitting the cost.
Is all they can afford.
Splitting the cost. Finally, he gets his ride with Mr. T next.
Finally.
Right? That's after the brothers.
Oh, yeah. And then we get stuff that is never resolved, too.
With the drug dealer?
Yes.
Well, it kind of it is at the very end.
Wait, what? Is it? How's it resolved?
Yes, because Mr. T. So Mr. T's thing that he likes to do is he's always wanted to be. He didn't ever picture himself being. I think he even does this little monologue where he says he didn't picture himself to be a cabbie, but that's what he is now, and he wants to be like a good citizen in his community, right?
And that's kind of everybody's thing. Everyone that he rides with is like, this is just a temporary gig until I become a gigolo, or until I can do this or do that. And I don't know what Busey's dream is, but I don't know, to design a crazy wheelchair for his nephew. But anyway, yes, Mr. T just wants to help people.
Better the community.
Help the community that he grew up in. Yes.
And he comes across, now this I didn't understand at first, so the drug dealer in town just has a fancy car and hangs out on the corner and everybody wants to see him not because he's dealing drugs, because he's got a fancy car.
Yep, he's got a fancy car and he parks on the sidewalk and kids love it. Kids just love a fancy car.
Yes, they do. Even later on when Mr. T's got a niece and he's like, come with me. So he's trying to protect his niece from the drug dealer and really the whole neighborhood, right?
I love how he gets out and he's like, get out of here. Get out of here, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't stay. And nobody moves. Nobody moves.
No,
Nobody leaves.
no.
The kids don't go anywhere. He just grabs his
He's
niece.
shooing them away like flies, though. He's like, come on, go, get.
This is his first. He is wearing and I had to write it down, he's wearing a yellow and orange tank top, like split down the middle. One side's yellow, one side's orange. He's wearing bright green sweatpants. He's wearing pink wristbands.
Not afraid to mismatch colors. Not afraid.
And big, giant purple socks. And high tops. Like, it is such a strange look.
With feathers dangling from his ears.
Of course.
Just a one-of-a-kind look.
And he also says to his niece, as they drive away, he says, don't become a turtle like me.
Yeah, he feels he's a turtle.
I don't know. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That I think he maybe took life too slow. I don't know.
Are you filling in the blanks, or is this what he said? Okay.
No.
All right. Okay.
I'm filling in some blanks because I don't know what he means by that.
Right,
but he is, because he doesn't seem he's very unturtly to me.
But now we're back at DC Cab. Roz has been getting robbed. She was robbed again, and she's had enough.
She's gonna leave. But then he uncomfortably pressures her to have a beer. Is that when he's like, come on. And kind of like, it goes on a little too long where he's like,
it goes on forever. And I was like, what is the point of this scene? But soon we realize what the point of this scene is, because Albert then looks in the bathroom and Gary Busey is lying on the floor between the stalls saying that he is doing intestinal yoga on the bathroom floor. And then he just cackles like a lunatic.
Yeah. I don't know what intestinal yoga is.
I don't know.
know.
Nobody did. Again, he probably wasn't even supposed to be in this scene. He probably just woke up lying on the set of a floor.
If this is true, it changes the whole DC cabin.
Yes.
And it probably is true. Is this when they see the male strippers?
Yes.
Why do they go to the male strippers?
They go there to, I guess, be there for all the hot and heavy ladies that come out of the strip club then. Like they show up to a strip club like at the end of the last dance.
That's right.
Yes. And then all the ladies pour out and then they start dancing on their cabs. And then all the ladies get in the cabs and they all just drive away.
Strange. Except...
Right. Albert doesn't have a cab.
And now
all the cabs are full of women, so nobody can take him.
But this is when he sees for the first time the waitress, right? Doesn't she come out of the...
Was that the waitress? Or was that just some lady?
I thought it was the waitress.
I just thought it was
all the same girl.
I just thought it was
But
some
maybe I'm
woman,
wrong.
and then he was like, "Oh, this might be my lucky day." But then some dude comes out,
Yeah,
and walks away
walks
with her.
out. Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't.
Maybe
matter.
it was just some woman.
It doesn't
I don't know.
make any sense. Who cares? Like it's weird. It doesn't matter. But then he goes back to DC Cab, where Bill Maher's playing a synthesizer.
Oh yeah, he's playing a little keyboard action, little synth,
Yeah.
and talks poetic about
That's
fears
literally
that you
what I
have in
wrote.
life,
I just
right?
wrote Bill Maher waxes poetic because I did
Yeah.
not give a shit what he was saying.
No,
at this
he
point.
goes on something about fear and how you can't. I don't know. I think maybe he's a turtle too.
Yeah,
like
he
Mr.
might be a
T.
turtle
I don't
too.
know.
He might be a turtle too. And I don't know if you know Adam Baldwin, the star of this movie. I don't know if you know.
Is he a Baldwin?
He is not a Baldwin. He's just
Okay.
Baldwin. I don't know
gotcha.
if you know his quite problematic political views. Very
no.
conservative. So I just found it funny that he and Bill
Oh.
Maher were in a scene together.
Oh, I didn't.
He's kind of a creep.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, anyway.
Oh, and also, okay, so they also hang out at this diner.
Oh,
where
yes.
all the other cab company and the cab companies dress like they're in Greece, like they're in gangs, like they wear these satin gang jackets.
They do? Like, oh, I thought you meant Greece first, the country. I was like Greek. Like, but you're right. Like, they're in the movie, like, Greece is the word, Yeah, they have, and the green cab, so it's yellow cab and green cab. Like, I guess you only name your cab companies by color.
Yeah, I
don't
guess.
know.
And then there's red cabs. You see a group wearing red jackets.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah, but the
green
villains
cab,
are the green cab, or their rivals
Yes.
are the green cab.
and they have much better cabs, and they have the fancy jackets. And like you said, they all hang out at this diner. This is when Busey does the weird thing on what's his name's wife's head, where he's like, the woman, she's got a headache, she needs to be healed, and he shakes her again like a lunatic, shakes her head, and is like,
He's got a weird thing going with the guy's wife too, because when they're all about to like break into the house and smash the windows and stuff, he's knocking on the door and he's like, "I know a motel. Why don't you just come out? You and I can hightail it out of here."
because he's shady.
He
'Cause he's
is,
Shady
yes.
Busey. Shady Busey.
I really thought that at the end of this, he was going to be having an affair with his wife, but he isn't, because he's a
No, he's
lovable
not the one.
weirdo. So you can't have him be the villain of this movie.
No, he's just a little lunatic.
So this is where Albert sees this waitress,
Oh, right.
who looks very young, by the way. She looks a little young for him.
She does
I'm
look
just-
young. But steam and like her hair starts blowing. Like they have this
Yep.
really funny thing that they make happen
And
when he sees her and
I
kind of.
kind of teased this earlier before we started the show.
Oh
with
yeah,
you.
who is this?
I looked at her and I went, "Oh, you know what? She looks a lot like Winnie Cooper." And then I remembered we watched a movie a long time ago, and I thought the lead actress of that movie looked like Winnie Cooper. She plays opposites Keanu Reeves in Babes in Toyland. She is the
She's the
Miss
white
Muffet
the,
or whatever.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, that's her.
Oh, yeah. Now I see it.
Yep.
Oh, good one.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So
Well,
good to point that out.
And she's done a
Nice.
lot. Like, she is still acting. She's just been, she does a lot of TV and stuff like that, but she's been
Yeah,
around
yeah.
for a very long time doing stuff. So,
Good on her.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
this
that's
is when. Well, thanks for that nugget. This is when again, I think it's the
the
government
president
guy,
of the,
the town
Taxi Cab
guy, yeah.
Association of
He
Washington,
comes-
D.C., let's call
For
him.
some reason, he's got to come with a giant poster. He didn't need this poster to say, "Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this violin?" Basically, a violin was left in one of the
$1
cabs.
million violin was left in a
very
cab.
expensive.
And I do love it how he has a rolled up poster
Yeah.
of this violinist that he has to show. And of course,
Yes.
when he says this, then all the cab drivers disperse to check the trash and to check the back of their cabs.
Oh yeah, because there's a reward obviously if you turn it in. Yeah.
Naive me, who thought he knew how movies worked, I thought this was the plot of this movie.
Nay, not a DC cat.
And it gets dropped in about 20 minutes for a kidnapping plot.
Well, because
Do we want? Are you about to talk about a nun getting hit with eggs? Because I'll talk about that all day long. Those kids.
What is that? What is so?
I don't know.
All right, so Tyrone, we do another ride with Tyrone, right? We do. Oh wait, we do one with Mr. T real quick, where he sees his niece. He sees her with the drug dealer. She's actually in the car of the drug dealer, and she's like, he pulls her out, and she's like, I just wanted to see his nice car.
Yes, and he's like, did he touch you? Did he touch you? She's like, no, I love this car. End of that. End of any of this with a drug dealer with a fancy car and his niece. They are gone.
No one in town has ever seen a fancy car before. Anyway, and then Tyrone, we go on another ride with Tyrone, where he first brings in like a whole bunch of people, like sandwiches, a whole family.
He's got a whole family. Yeah, because Albert's like, can I ride with you? And he's like, I don't know if you want to do this. Cut to Albert's in the front seat of the car. People are sitting on his lap. Everybody's there. It's pretty funny. But then there's almost like no scene in between. And suddenly he's driving a cab with a couple of maids in the back.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, are these like family members of his that he's taking to their jobs? Whatever.
I know, because it's a regular thing. Because they take this cab every day to this house that they
very wealthy house.
It's weird. I don't get it.
But these two bratty kids that look like they're Harry Potter, like out of Harry Potter, are sitting outside. Holy shit, that
girl looks shit like her. She's got the frizzy hair.
Yeah, yes. Yep. And these two bratty kids who love their little nannies and housekeeps, whatever, throw eggs at the... Is that what they do? They throw eggs at the...
I think it's important that we set this up because there is a nun outside of this gated house. There's a gate that's shut. The kids are behind the gate waiting with a bunch of eggs. There's a nun out front who I assumed was like teaching them or something. I didn't know. The cab pulls up. The gates open. These kids start pelting this nun with eggs.
Yeah.
And then throwing them at the cab. This is apparently super normal for Tyrone.
This is what they do.
The maids get out, corral the kids. Tyrone and Albert drive away. And it is a scene where I thought, that was mildly amusing. I assume we'll never see that again. And I was, again, very wrong.
Very wrong, because it's a key part of the second half of this movie.
Oh, my God. All right.
Tyrone's ride doesn't get... So after this freaky egg drop-off, he also then goes to the airport again to try to get people, and he picks up a drunk guy. That was weird too. He picks up this old guy who kind of falls down drunk in the back of his car and is like, take me to this airport. Yeah. And Tyrone like drives like 5 feet and is like, all right, we're there.
Jimmy, it's like you're reading my notes. I have 5 feet written in my notes. Yeah, he wants him to drive him across town to the other airport. He doesn't. Yes. He just pulls up slightly, charges him $50. And Albert, of course, wants nothing to do with this.
Albert's conscience can't take that.
And he has to return the money. He was having such a great time until he meets Tyrone.
Yeah, exactly. He was enjoying D2C and now... Oh, and then Tyrone is the one that loves Irene the singer, right?
Yeah, Irene Cara?
Yeah.
Something,
Cara?
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. What a feeling.
Right, yes. Yeah, there's so many connections to past episodes, everybody.
I know. There really are.
There
it's
really
like
are.
the Kevin Bacon thing, but not. Yeah. Because it's not Kevin Bacon. Yep. Anyway, Tyrone decides then to do the initiation thing with him, right? Like
after he freaks out and says this rollers thing is just a wig, and then I guess he puts the wig back on.
He pulls this weird hair. That's right. I don't understand that either. So Tyrone always wears rollers in his hair and then takes it off at one point. It's a wig, but then Tyrone's just bald. It's not anything.
His hair is just very short. Then later he shows up at DC Cab and gets out without his roller wig, and not a single person goes, "Whoa, what's going on with your hair?" So I guess everybody knows this. Why are you wearing it then? What are you
He's
doing?
crazy. I don't know.
Anyway, I'm very angry about that.
I see.
So,
I could tell you're burned up about it.
So he tells him this initiation thing where they have to wear masks and you have to get your license and you also had to drive a car on train tracks.
Yeah.
And you just see how far you can go. But it seems
they do this.
insanely challenging because you have to get the wheels up on the rails and drive on the rails.
And steady it, yeah. And then a train comes. When they're driving on the rails, a train comes. And the two of them both freak out because the car is stuck on the train. He can't get the car off the tracks, rather. Then... what's his name is stuck actually in Albert's.
Yeah, Albert gets his sleeve stuck on the door handle or
and
something.
he can't get out. And then it's kind of funny because Tyrone just kind of screams, and Albert, you think you don't know what's gonna happen, but nay. The train turns right on the other track, and they're okay. Tyrone makes a joke and is like, "Yeah, that was part of the test.
Yeah, like I knew
that it was going to do
on the other
that."
tracks the whole time, and they're both so sweaty. They're so sweaty.
And so heavy breathing.
They find out that Grady from Sanford & Son, Mr. Rhythms, has the violin. He's been playing it like a ukulele.
Mm-hmm.
Standing around a garbage can,
looking at it,
playing a violin.
And when they which cab did you find that in? He's like, the yellow one is his response.
Oh, Mr. Rhythm. And he also gives advice that I didn't write down because I never thought it was all that interesting. But he
always gives some kind of sagey
old man advice.
Mm-hmm. But it's filthy old man advice. Like I think his first advice to some of it is sagey, but some of it's just filthy.
Oh, I didn't know it was filthy. I just thought some of it was useless because there was one point where Albert gives him something for his advice, and he's like, here's $1, and it's $1 more than that deserved, or something like that.
It's part of his thing, though. Mr. Rhythm's always just talking in rhythms, right? That's what he does. That's how he do.
So in the meantime, Albert is driving a cab now. I don't know. Did he get his license by this point? Why is he driving a cab? He's driving Tyrone's cab. They slept under a bridge in the cab that night.
Oh, right.
And he's driving his cab. He pulls up to the spot where Roz is always robbed.
Yeah, and now he's going to get brave.
Yes. He goes to get robbed, but he just starts driving with this guy in the cab. Yeah. And he races to DC cab. Everybody's fighting about this violin, but they stop fighting because they're all going to beat up this guy, but they don't. They all the cops drag Tyrone out of the back, and the cops are going to shoot him, and everybody else is trying to stop the cops.
Tyrone ends up, so the guy comes in with a gun.
Yeah, Tyrone ends up with the gun. Right.
Tyrone ends up with the gun, and then somehow Tyrone's in trouble because he has the gun. And the guy, did you recognize who the bad guy was?
No.
He's the guy from Grease 2.
What? What is happening right now? This entire podcast has all collided to form DC Cab, a movie we've never heard of.
That's why Christian recommended it. Good. This is a great recommend.
Yeah, Christian, you really did a great job with this. I am amazed. Wow, I had no idea. Really, it's that guy, that British guy, or I guess he's not British. He was just British in.
I don't know what he was.
Australian.
He's not the.
What was he?
No, he's not the good guy. He's the bad guy. The one that makes the face, the pockmark guy.
Oh, the pockmark guy from Grease and Grease 2. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have said, but Grease 2 is the one we covered.
We also just glossed over the fact, and this is another character in this that I really like, is the sassy waitress who is the grandmother of the waitress that Albert wants to date. And she does not want him to date because she even says to him, one day someone who's not a cab driver is going to come in here with flowers and chocolates, and then he is going to be able to date this girl. Until then, buddy, you can't talk to her. Plus, she's probably 15.
Yeah, you have to wait till she's at least 17. Back at the diner, speaking of, we're back at the diner when Harold, now we've got the violin, Harold's turned it in. He's decided instead of him and his wife, which she is very upset about. What's her name?
Upset.
Mabel or something?
I don't know what her name is, actually. I didn't write it down.
Something weird with an M. All right. Melinda? Merwin? I don't know. So she is super upset with him.
Let's call her Merlin. Sure, why not?
Harold announces that he is going to split the money from
Right.
the violin with everyone and split between, there's like 12 of them, I think. No, I don't know.
And I don't even think that's including his wife or him.
No.
I was really trying on my hands. I was counting, and I was like, "Well, there's 2 of those barbarian brothers. There's Bill Maher, Mr.
But
T.
do they count as one?
Right,
Do the two
exactly.
barbarian
And I'm
brothers-
like, "Oh yeah." Then there's a Jamaican guy too.
Oh yeah, the one
We haven't talked about
Rasta
because
guy, yeah.
his thing is that he's Jamaican.
And I think his name is like Jamaica Bob or something. It's like, I don't even
If
know.
it isn't, it should be. Yeah. So again, everybody would be getting roughly $800. I'm gonna say if this is all split.
But his whole plan is I want you to invest back in the company. I'll give you this money, and he's convinced that they'll do the right thing, and
and we're all gonna get this money, or I get
Right.
this money, and then they all yell, and he's like, "But wait, but we're all gonna split it," and then they just start
Right.
yelling, and he's like, "But I want you to invest it back." Then they yell again. It is the weirdest scene in this movie. Just how tonally bizarre the whole thing is.
Well, what happens next is even more abrupt in one way. Melba, what we decide to call
Merlin.
her, decides. So it seems like maybe they're
Sure.
deep down, they're all a bunch of good guys, even though they're a little crazy. They're all good guys, and they are going to invest in the cab company.
Adam Baldwin kind of convinces them. He's like, "Come on, he took a chance on
it's
you
what we're
guys.
doing for-
Let's do
yeah.
this. It'll be great." And they all kind of say, "All right, let's do this."
But then they find out that the wife took everything, took all the money, took the house, won't let him back in the house now,
Right.
and is like, because she watched something about this on the Today Show or
Yeah,
something. He makes mention.
I don't know. It is so. She even says that she's like, "I called the local news. I called the
Yeah.
Today Show. I called the mayor. They're all coming down."
Because it's not right. The
Right.
business is part hers too, and she's got some stake in it. So now he's like, poor Harold. Now he's lost his wife
Yep.
and his money and his company and his house.
Sure.
And Albert's really feeling for him. And Albert, as it turns out, has $6,000 that his dead dad gave to him.
At this moment in the movie, I went, "We didn't even need that violin thing. Like we did not need
Albert
it."
had it the whole time. Oh, but then how this connects then again to the kidnapping is a whole nother story. So, because
Oh God.
right?
The There's a kidnapping in this movie.
Yeah,
And,
people, we
and when
didn't
I
get to
say
the kidnapping.
kidnapping, I don't mean like members of DC Cab are kidnapped.
No.
Children in this movie that we've seen for a second throwing eggs at a nun are kidnapped.
And it's a worry. And they're kidnapped with one of our prime players.
Right.
This is what, okay, he does convince them. Albert then convinces them, listen, I've got money and we could put my money together, and my money is, we'll redo DC Cab. It'll be so exciting. This is when Gary Busey does his weird Elvis dance and makes his announcement that he doesn't work on January 8th because it's Elvis.
I don't work on January 8th because it's Elvis's birth. And then he just dances. It's just dancing. Camera sits on him. Camera doesn't move. Camera doesn't cut away. He dances. He just, it's such a strange scene in this movie. In a movie
Very
full of strange scenes. He just hangs there. This is also Mr. T is wearing a pink and blue bodysuit at this moment.
Okay. Oh, man. So good. So good.
Everybody's in except Tyrone. Tyrone's done. He's out. He's had enough.
Yeah.
Again, this comes to nothing. But he's had enough. He puts his wig back on with the curlers.
He is what gets everybody in trouble. Because he's decided to leave, and that's why Albert has to take his shift and drives the kids and gets kidnapped. And
I kind of feel like this would have happened if Tyrone was there anyway. Like, I feel like this was planned to happen on that day. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But anyway, let's cut to a montage of them cleaning this cab place up with the same song from the beginning of the movie.
Yep, they're getting new sign put on the building, cleaning the cars, new paint on the cars, new jackets for themselves. They're doing a lot of jumping jacks. Like at one time, even Bill Maher, like they're all like in this like triangle doing jumping jacks.
Yeah, if you ever want to watch Bill Maher do jumping jacks, watch DC Cab.
Busey gets a new stereo in his car.
and he blows out the windows. He just screams and yells for a while, and the windows blow out of this brand new cab.
And that's it.
That's
and he's just
it.
like, he
End
makes
of
Albert
scene.
come in and listen to the new stereo. He's like, come here, listen. Blows out the windows, and it's like, that's all we got.
Roz starts walking around wearing a fur coat, which I thought was great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, she gets what she deserves, too. Oh, Mr. T gets his specialty cab. This is when it comes full circle, because he gets a specialty, like, souped-up cab, and then he drives by the drug dealer with his fancy car, but people are now into Mr. T's fancy cab.
How did I miss this? I must have looked away at this
but
point.
it's great redemption, because they're like, oh. And
I
Mr.
totally
T's
missed that.
now... Yeah, Mr. T's now feels redemptive.
Albert comes in and asks permission to date the waitress, and you know, he's finally wearing his yellow cab jacket that they all got. And
so official.
And he is given permission to date the waitress. Yay. Very exciting.
So he already got his, because when he first gets his official license,
he got his license around the time that they're all yelling about the money.
Oh, because that's when he officially gets his license and he goes for his first ride. We've talked about how she is just shit in the back of the car.
They're just making out in a cab.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, just hot and heavy making out. That's why he became a cab driver, so he could make out.
This is also a strange scene because we got back to DC Cab and there's candles everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
There's just candles not just like, oh, we'll eat by candlelight in the office. That'll be nice. They're everywhere. And I don't understand why.
Maybe the electric went out at DC Cab?
I don't know. Because somebody just shows up with Chinese food and that's the end of that scene.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I wrote my notes at this point. Everything's great. How is there still 40 minutes left?
Yep. No, because there is. Because what happens next somehow is Busey goes to find Tyrone to be like, listen, everything is like going gravy here. You should come back. And Tyrone is selling souvenirs.
He's dressed like Uncle Sam.
But then Tyrone realizes that his favorite singer, Irene, is in town, and he steals Busey's cab to go give her a ride. And
he jumps out and she gets in the cab and he's like, why are you here? And she's like, I'm singing at the White House.
White House, yeah.
So he's picking up this singer. Tyrone's picking up the singer. So
so somebody has to so since he's left, I guess, Albert has been doing Tyrone's shifts, his regulars.
Right.
So the people that have to, the maid and the nanny that have to get dropped off at that egg tossing kid's house, that's Albert is left to do it. And when Albert does it, there's like a shootout. It gets crazy.
So this
right?
nun, again, he pulls up, the nun is there again. The nun who got eggs thrown at her before. She has a camera in her hands.
Oh, yeah.
The kids run out. The gate opens, the kids run out, the nuns come out.
Yeah.
2 other men jump out of a van. They grab these kids and they throw the kids in the van. And then I think the nun or somebody jumps in the cab and takes Albert hostage too.
Yes.
Yeah, because the cab is taken. So Albert and these 2 kids who we don't know and don't care about and have no connection to have been kidnapped for some reason.
Yes.
I mean, the kids are rich because they're just trying to...
Yeah, I'm assuming it's because they're rich and they want the ransom money. Because the kids, when they're kidnapped, are like, yeah, this happens all the time. Yeah, we're not too worried about it. Like, we get kidnapped all the time. So I feel like that this is because they're, like, wealthy kids. They get held for ransom.
All the time. All the time.
But
it just happened.
There's been some sort of turnaround where the guy from the city, from the the guy is back.
Sure.
And they need to close down DC Cab because there's an investigation going on.
Yes. They think Albert got the money that he used from, I guess, abducting children in his spare time and holding them for ransom.
Where'd you get the new cars? Where'd you get the money for the all this upgrade that you did? And they're like, well, when Albert came, Albert brought money, and they're like, oh, and then the children went missing.
Yeah, right. And even the guy who owns DC Cab, Harold, even the cops are like, where'd you get this money? He's like, Albert gave it to me.
Yeah, even he's like questioning.
And Albert explicitly said, this is money I got when my dad died. Like, that's easy enough for him to tell them and easy enough for them to look into and to find out that he is not part of this kidnapping plot. But none of that happens. The cops think he's in on it.
Yeah, so they close down. So now the cabbies, the DC cabs, don't have access to their cabs.
Right. Roz leaves also. She leaves for the green team.
Yeah, she's had enough. So it's her time to go. She's a single mom. She has to feed her kid. So,
but Tyrone comes in.
With a suit.
He doesn't look like Tyrone. Not wearing his wig. Nobody says a word. Nobody cares.
Nope.
He's wearing a suit. He comes in, he probably says, I met Reagan. He sounded like Marilyn Monroe. It was weird. But he has a plan. He says, I have a plan.
Right.
And their first part of their plan involves stealing cabs from the Green Cab Company.
Because they need automobiles. They need some sort of car to get themselves. So do they know yet that where Harold is, right? Do they?
No, because it's
or where
Albert is. But for some reason, at one point, they're like, I know who kidnapped these kids. And I'm like, how do you know? Who knows what's happening? Because then they go shake down some girl in an apartment.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They go to the apartment and they go to because a couple of people were injured but not kidnapped. The nanny, the maid was injured but not kidnapped, and so she's in the hospital. And Busey and Paul Rodriguez and who else?
Tyrone.
Tyrone all go and pretend to be lawyers.
I want a whole movie of them pretending to be lawyers because this scene was over in 20 seconds and I went, I want more. Like, I need something more with this.
And that nanny, she's their nanny, I think, because all she keeps saying is, I got to get my babies back. I got to make sure those babies are okay.
But that doesn't come to none of this comes to anything.
No, I don't even know why they go see them because... P.S. Now we have another sidebar where Harold goes back to his house and realizes that his wife is cheating on him with this guy named Ernesto. And then
Ernesto's the guy. Ernesto's the president of the Cab
that's right.
Association.
That's who that is. Yes. And he pushes him in a pool and gets his flamethrower thing out at him. Which, P.S. we forgot to mention that earlier. When she takes the house and takes all their money, she threatens them all with a flamethrower too. Like this flamethrower.
She tries to throw flames at all of them.
Yes.
She almost lights that porch roof on fire. Did you see that scene? I was like, this could gone
be really
wrong.
Dangerous. Yeah. Yes. I don't know about the flamethrowers in homes, but
this is I got such a genuine laugh out of this scene where Albert is struggling to get out of his... The kids are tied up. Albert's tied up. He's blindfolded.
Yeah.
And he finally, he's struggling. He's falling over. And the whole time he's like, kids, don't worry. I'll get us out of here. And he finally breaks out. And he looks over and the kids are standing there all untied. And they're like, yay, Albert, you did it. I genuinely really laughed out loud when I was watching that.
But he only gets free enough to go and make a walkie-talkie cabbie call, right?
Yeah, on his radio in his cab.
And nobody answers except that Mr. Rhythm guy. And he tells Mr. Rhythm where he is, but he can't tell much because he's got to go back and check on the kids. And he tells him Bruce Lee. He's by an airport, and there's houses.
South of the airport, he's in a barn. There's a windmill. And Bruce Lee. So Grady, Mr. Rhythm, steals a cab or whatever, gets in the cab that he's been sleeping in and drives it around and finds the rest of the group, the rest of DC Cab.
Yeah.
And this is when he relays all this information about a farm and windmills, and everybody's like, Mr. T's like, there's 87 farms around here, and 42 of them have windmills or whatever.
Yeah.
And he tells them Bruce Lee, and... This is when we get another great line of dialogue from Gary Busey.
Oh, what does Busey say?
Where he's like, Bruce Lee's not dead.
Oh, yeah,
he's frozen.
Right.
They froze him, and they put him underground, and they're going to bring him up. They're going to thaw him out once the economy's better.
That's right. It's crazy. I do hope, now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect, I hope that all these lines were just like Busey formed out of the blue and people were like, what the fuck?
Because this also gets no reaction from anybody. Like, nobody tells him to shut up.
They're like, he's just going to show up every day to set and say what he says, and it'll just be in the movie.
You know what? Actually, this is, after he says all this, after he says that nonsense, this is a very bizarre impassioned speech by Mr. T.
Yeah, in front of the Lincoln Memorial.
And then he turns around and salutes the Lincoln statue.
He does this whole speech about pride and dignity and self-respect, and
it is amazing because they all split up into groups.
Yeah.
Mr. T and the bodybuilders, they find a farm and
the mailbox, Bruce Lee, Leigh. They're like, oh, well, here we go.
I love that a farmer in rural Washington, D.C. is named Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee, yeah.
And they jump through the windows while these people are eating dinner.
The people are in their kitchen, and there's like a frame of 3 windows around them.
Yeah.
And the 3 men just jump on in and realize it's just a simple family nobody's kidnapped anybody here. So they're like, sorry, and they leave. But
the best thing about this scene, I had to rewind it and just watch it again because the lack of reaction from this entire family is so great. Nobody is startled. Nobody even turns around as 3 enormous monsters fly through their windows.
It must happen often. They are the Lees, after all, the Bruce Lees. This was clever. They make their cabs all look like police cars.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Somehow they do this. I don't know how, but they do.
They find there's a Bruce Lee movie playing on the screen.
Yes.
Is that that leads them to, it's not Bruce Lee the house, it's Bruce Lee the movie that's playing on the big screen near these houses.
Bruce Lee the house. I'm going to name my house Bruce Lee. Some people name their cars. I'm going to be like, this is my house.
Welcome to Bruce Lee. Weirdo.
They finally figure out where he is.
Yeah.
The bad guys are there. Everybody's held at gunpoint.
Yeah.
As you said, they line up the cabs. They pretend that they're police. They have a bullhorn.
Yes.
And he's yelling stuff like, this is the police. And Gary Busey goes, now tell him you're Batman. The kids are saved by Mr. T.
Yeah,
because he
of course.
jumps in wearing all primary colors. It's great.
The brightest of them.
And he rescues the kids.
Yes.
But they still have Albert. They still throw Albert into the van, and the bad guys drive away with Albert. And then it's a lengthy chase scene, like a very long chase scene that we did not need in this movie.
No, why are they hitting so they get him in the van, and now, of course, they all have their cabs, so they chase after him. And they're hitting the van with baseball bats?
Just hitting it with baseball. Everybody's just swinging their arms out with baseball bats, hitting the van. People are trying to ram each other. It's a whole
they're
weird
rear-ending
thing.
him. And finally they pull Albert out of the van. He leaves behind his cowboy boots, which belong to his pappy, but that's okay because at least he's free.
Because he's not dead.
Right? And everyone is so happy and so excited, and the kids are returned, and then we get the longest parade ever.
Why? There is a parade for DC Cab.
It's just for DC
the
Cab.
Company.
It's just for them.
It's just for DC
Because
Cab.
they're
all
back in action.
sitting on the roofs of their cabs, waving. The end credits are as long
They're
as the beginning
forever. They're
credits.
forever. I got up. I was cleaning up my stuff. I'm like, this movie's over. My husband's like, it's still going.
It's still going. Because then they get to, I don't know, City Hall. They're given a key to the city or something.
Yeah.
They run up these steps. It goes on forever.
And it's like, wow, they got a parade for just being a wow.
Not just being first of all, they saved those children. I don't think it was just for being
Yeah,
a
but
cab
according
company.
to the children, they get kidnapped all the time. Is there a parade every time they're returned?
Mommy, we gotta throw another one of these for I can't even do it. I can't even pretend now to do a terrible Reagan impression.
So bad. I really like your accents. I don't like that one. It makes me uncomfortable. No.
Okay, all right. I'm done. Is it how close I get to the microphone?
It's all of it.
Probably,
I mean, if people saw your whole positioning and kind of what happens to your face too, yeah, look.
You say, yeah, look, as though I can look at myself.
Well.
I'm not putting up my end of Skype just to watch that. Yeah, so that's how DC Cab
With
ends.
a parade, with a brilliant parade. Oh my
parade.
God. You can't tell me that you didn't enjoy this. Did you?
They do have to, I mean, it probably is something where, like, do you know that the same company that found that $1 Million Violin just saved a bunch of kids?
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should throw them a parade.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, no, I enjoyed this. This is an oddity that I think needs to be seen by people. This is a weird movie.
Great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's a perfect movie for our podcasting purposes, too. So well done on the recommendation, I'd have to say, as far as to have us watch it. And having had watch it, again, as a child of the 80s, as a little, what was I, 5? Was I 5 in 1983?
No,
I can't do
I don't know
math.
when you were born. Sure.
I was a young child.
5.
I would not have seen this then, and I'm glad I didn't see it then. But boy, am I glad to have seen it now. It's a good movie.
Right.
Fun movie.
No, definitely.
Wild. I wish it was a little bit shorter. Like you just get a little carried away, but then you almost need it. You need the extra kidnapping to be like, what happens now? That would be my only complaint. Is I was like, all this crazy, I could do it.
Strangely enough, though, I think that this movie is one where when I was watching it the first time, that was irritating.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like if I watched it again with somebody, I'd be like, "Oh, just wait till
the
we get to the
kidnapping." Yeah,
Just like wait till you see what's gonna happen next.
That's true. What do you recommend?
Right. So what do you?
Well,
Oh, my recommendation is a movie called Night on Earth.
Oh.
It's a movie by Jim Jarmusch, and it is about cab drivers.
Excellent.
It's like 5 different stories. Cab drivers in LA and New York and Paris. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and Rome. And I think the other one is Helsinki.
Oh.
I could be wrong there, but I'm just saying city
I like
names. It's good. Like it's not a movie of his that I really love, but if you like movies of, 1 or 2 characters just talking for basically a half hour at a time.
Then this.
Yeah. If you like his other movie, Coffee and Cigarettes, like if you like that, this is very similar to that. So that's my recommendation because I wanted to do another cab film, but there aren't a whole lot of
It's
them.
crazy. This was a weird movie not weird, but this was a hard movie to grab a recommendation of it. I think because I enjoyed it so much, I was like, well, what am I going to recommend that's anything like this? And I did.
You can't.
I know.
There's nothing, just maybe a severe blow to the head.
I did go through the list because there is a large list of actors, and I couldn't find anything that resonated, I guess. But then I thought about the show that I'm watching now on its last season. Have you watched Broad City? Comedy Central's
Oh my God.
So they're so fun and so crazy and so silly and so, I mean, it's not quite Mr. T and Gary Busey's pairing, but they're a great little pair and it's a fun show and it's the last season, and so far the last season's pretty fun as well.
That is a show that I may have seen like 5 episodes of, and I loved it, but I just haven't watched it. I think it's one of those shows where once it's done,
You'll dive in.
Yeah, like over the summer, I'll probably just watch the whole thing because anytime I've seen it, it's great, but it's nothing that I think of.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great binge when you're ready. So yeah, go on. There you have it. All right. So
again, Christian, thank you so much. That was
many thanks.
That was just a joy, and all this stuff.
It was a really good time, Christian. It was like a chocolate cake. You have a chocolate cake and it's going to be good, but then inside the chocolate cake is some kind of like molten lava thing that's really warm, not hot lava, like chocolate lava that's tasty. And
okay, good. I'm glad you're not saying it burned your insides until you exploded
No, like
in
a
flames.
chocolate lava cake. I think that's such a thing.
Sure.
It's delicious. And like I said, you think it's just going to be a yummy chocolate cake, and then you go in and it's really nice.
2 weeks from now, we're going to go from a movie that did not really feature women at all to a movie that is pretty much all women, because March is like National Women's month. That's not right. I'm not saying it right. It's something. It's something. I should have written that down, right?
That's all right.
But we are going to do a movie called Modern Girls.
Ooh. Modern Girls.
That's right. So that will be 2 weeks from today. And just to remind everyone, we are coming up on our 100th episode.
100 episodes. Yowzas.
Yes. So between Modern Girls and our 100th episode, we will be releasing a very special bonus episode where we take questions that you guys asked us and we answer those questions.
We produce answers. Yes, correct.
We will produce several answers to those
Yes.
questions. Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, watch Modern Girls.
Check it out.
And we will talk about it 2 weeks from now. Is there anything else?
No,
Are we done?
Do we have to collect, like, for schools, kids' schools, they do like the 100 days? Like, are we going to dress like two old people and are you going to have like 100 Cheerios and 100 Staples in a bag?
Did I ever tell you that oh man, now I don't even, this is the problem with having several children that are all girls. I don't know which daughter it was. I think it was Jocelyn. I think it was my oldest. She, for school once, had to draw a picture of what, it was the 100 day of school thing, a picture of what they would look like when they were 100.
Okay.
She drew a headstone.
Oh my God. I can totally see her doing that.
It was really
like,
great.
done.
Like there were flowers around it and her name was written on it. And I was like, this is morbid but super funny. And she was only in like second grade. I was like, that's pretty great.
I'm going to bet that it was Jocelyn. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So
That's awesome.
anyway, everyone, we will see you in 2 weeks. Watch Modern Girls. Watch DC Camp again.
Yeah, watch it.
Just watch it
Just
again.
do it.
Just for fun. Have a good time. All right, everybody, we will talk to you in a couple weeks. Bye for now. Oh, do all the things that we always ask you to do.
Oh, yeah.
Go to our Patreon. Go find us on Facebook. Leave reviews for us on iTunes.
We love it.
We haven't asked for that in a long
Yeah,
time, but we love
do.
them. Please do so. That's it. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
On the street, under pressure, the city angels meet, making a stand against the odds. You can feel the heat. It's making or breaking. Try to survive. Don't ever say never. Keep your dream alive. Around the clock, we're gonna rock to the rhythm of the street. Up and down the block. Around the clock, we're gonna rock the dreams you give. The streets could talk. Wanna be somebody, be a contender. Gotta reach for the sky. If you want it, fight for it, or kiss it goodbye. It's make it or break it. Oh shit!
Mammy, I love that girl who was in Fame.
Oh
Do
my
you
God, is
think
that
she
your
might
Ronald
come
Reagan?
and sing
Is
the
that
one-
your Ronald
Do you
Reagan?
think she? Yeah, this is my Ronald Reagan. This is as good as it's gonna get. Sorry.
Wait, keep going. Keep
Well,
going.
Do you think she's a Republican? I mean, Reagan fever is sweeping the nation. Do you think they would?
Oh my God. That's very creepy.